There are many controversial policies gaining recent attention in the United States. One such policy that has begun to gain mass amounts of criticism is school dress code policies. According to an article on findlaw.com entitled School Dress Codes, the U.S. Supreme Court established the first school dress code law in 1969. The resulting law occurred after several high school students began wearing black armbands to school as a protest against the Vietnam War. It was ultimately decided that this form of dress was a disruption to the overall learning environment of schools. While maintaining a stable and non-disruptive environment has remained the goal of public institutions, things that are considered to cause said disruptions have recently caused issues for students, particularly to female and overweight students. One such incident that called for concern occurred at an Oklahoma high school, and, after a Facebook post detailing the incident, it has been gaining a lot of attention throughout social media and other platforms. The post discusses what took place when student Rose Lynn wore what by all accounts would be considered a tasteful leggings and sweater combination outside the classroom to school. When being chastised for violating the dress code, Lynn was told, "If the outfit doesn't cover your crotch, it will distract the boys." An article on People.com highlights a statement made by Lynn in her Facebook post in which she states, "So once again, society has failed to advocate for young ladies by confining them in a box, where they are stripped from their sense of self-respect and self-expression, rather than teaching young men to respect the boundaries of young ladies." Young girls like Lynn are beginning to be subject to this kind of body policing on a daily basis due to current dress code policies in public schools that discourage any display of female body parts as innocent as shoulders or knees. Today, I'm going to discuss why the distraction argument behind school dress codes is sexist and invalid, as well as 3 solutions in combating this problem. The 3 solutions I will discuss are the implementation of school uniforms, shifting the focus to education instead of clothing, and revision of current dress code policies. Now let's move forward to the problem behind the policy. While many may feel this kind of dress code policing is both harmless and valid, it actually presents a major problem. They are exceedingly gender biased to the point of sexism. The brunt of these policies falls literally on the shoulders of young girls. The fact that these policies particularly target young women has begun to cause a significant number of problems. For example, as Meg Besaw states in her article, The Problem with Dress Codes, the main argument behind implementation of school dress code is distraction. For example, the Austin High School Code of Conduct, the dress code specifically prohibits halter tops, tank tops, and spaghetti straps, as well as skirts or shorts that are short enough to be distracting. Thus, young women are told that exposure of a knee, a shoulder, or a bra strap poses a distraction to other students, specifically young men. By this logic, young women are the ones held responsible for the actions of their male classmates. This shifted responsibility carries a heavy amount of sexism in the fact that it allows young men the opportunity to shift blame for their actions to the young women, thus perpetuating rape culture by instilling the notion that young women are objects to be ogled at whenever one deems fit. Furthermore, this shifted responsibility instills in young individuals the idea that men should not be held accountable for their actions, and that it is the responsibility of young women to prevent unwanted gazes by adhering to a certain dress code. Now that we've discussed the problem, let's take a look at the 3 effective solutions for combating it. There have been many proposed solutions to solving the sexist nature of school dress codes. The 3 most effective would be to either implement uniforms, focus more on student education and less on clothing, or revise the current policies. Implementing uniforms is a great solution because it would create a more inclusive environment and remove the sexism. By requiring students to wear uniforms, it removes the ability to excuse young men's actions by blaming educational distractions on the fashion choices of young women. Not only will this increased uniformity decrease the number of young women being singled out for wearing clothes the school deems inappropriate, but they would also improve the overall school environment. According to the article School Uniforms and Safety by Sue Stanley, 2 years after mandatory implementation of school uniforms, a school district in Long Beach, California reports of assault and battery within the schools decreased by 34%, assault with a deadly weapon dropped by 50%, incidents of fighting went down by 51%, sex offenses decreased by 74%, and possession of weapons decreased by 52%. While some may argue that uniforms would be too expensive for some families, however, according to according to Vieta.org, there are many schools have fundraisers and buyback programs to help ease the financial burden on families. Shifting focus from student dress to education is another valid solution. Encouraging teachers to focus less on student dress code and more on education, it forces a shift to focus from policing students' dress to learning. An article on the Olympian.com called Dress Code, Let's focus on education, not what we're wearing, points out that the quality of student learning comes down to teachers' ability to present material effectively and that poor student performance by male students should not be blamed on the girl next to him wearing shorts. By not allowing excuse of distraction for poor student performance, the sexist nature of dress codes is reduced. Focusing more on education as opposed to the length of a young girl's skirt lets these young women know that they are not responsible for the actions of other students and shouldn't have to police themselves in order to avoid distracting young men and teachers. In a research brief, Howard Johnson, a professor at the University of South Florida, points out the fact that when students who are seen to be in violation of the dress code are either sent home or placed in isolation, it negatively affects the educational opportunities and overall student performance. By revising current dress code policies, schools can maintain the current standards but adjust certain stipulations to maintain gender equality and avoid sexism in regards to female students. A modified dress code would ultimately be one in which students are told what they can wear as opposed to what they can't. An article in the Tampa Bay Times discusses the implementation of a modified dress code in Philadelphia schools in which students would be required to wear collared shirts with sleeves and belts for pants with loops, instead of being told that they can't wear baggy pants and spaghetti straps. Implementing this kind of dress code would also help to remove the ambiguity behind certain dress code stipulations, as seen in the Austin, Texas School Code of Conduct, in which states that students may not wear improperly fitting clothing that are seen to be overly tight. By this statement, the fit of the clothing is up for interpretation, and what one person may deem as appropriate may not be to another. Furthermore, this code mainly targets young women and those who are more overweight, thus reinforcing the sexist and discriminatory nature of current school dress codes. In conclusion, while maintaining a structured and disciplined learning environment is essential to student education, the solution to maintain this environment should not be to fault student dress as the cause of lacking discipline, especially as it pertains to young men. Students should be held accountable for their actions as it pertains to their ability to stay focused and attentive during school hours. By not allowing male students to shift the blame to female students' legs or shoulders, we instill accountability at a young age, which has the potential to stop the feed into rape culture. Furthermore, by not placing blame on young women for the lack of attentiveness of young men, we allow them to gain back their autonomy, thereby creating a stronger and well-carried individual. By implementing either uniforms, modified dress codes, or by simply shifting the focus to education, we can hold students accountable for their actions and create a focused, and attentive students that are ready to take on the world.